There comes a time in every life when the weight of worry feels unbearable, when the noise of this world drowns out the quiet voice within, and when the fight to make everything work begins to crush the soul. You've tried to fix it. You've wrestled with it in your mind.
You've prayed, cried, planned, and pushed. But what if I told you that the very thing you're chasing is not running from you? It's waiting for you to stop running and rest in God. The miracle you've been searching for does not live in your striving, your surrender.
The moment you learn to rest in God, miracles will begin to find you. We live in a world that teaches us to hustle, to grind, to control every outcome, and to measure our worth by how much we can do. But God never created you to live in exhaustion. He created you to live in trust. Rest is not weakness. It's worship. It's the posture of a soul that says, God, I can't, but you can. When you learn to rest in Him, you are declaring with bold faith that you believe His plan is stronger than your prayer. His timing is wiser than your impatience, and His hand is mightier than your effort. So many people are worn out, not because God has forgotten them, but because they have forgotten to rest in Him. They've built their lives around fear instead of faith, around control instead of confidence in His promises. But miracles don't appear in chaos. They unfold in peace. They manifest in the stillness of a heart that knows God is working even when nothing seems to be moving. The greatest victories are not won through panic, but through peace. When you learn to rest, you give God room to act. Resting in God does not mean doing nothing. It means doing what you can and then leaving the outcome in His hands. It means replacing worry with worship, frustration with faith, and striving with surrender. Every battle you try to fight on your own becomes heavier, but every battle you release to God becomes lighter. That's when miracles begin to chase you down. That's when doors you never knocked on start opening. That's when people you never expected to help you start showing up. Because when your heart rests in God, your life aligns with His plan. Think of how many sleepless nights are spent trying to make sense of what only God can explain. Think of how much energy is wasted problems in your mind that only His power can solve. Every moment you spend worrying is a moment stolen from peace. But the moment you rest, the moment you say, God, I trust you, everything changes. You begin to see what you could not see before. You begin to sense His presence, His timing, His quiet assurance that says, I am with you. That's when miracles find you. Not when you chase them, but when you trust Him. There's a sacred power in stillness. The world rushes, but God whispers. The world demands results, but God builds character. The world teaches speed, but God teaches strength through patience. Resting in Him is not a delay, it's preparation. God often pauses your plans to perfect your heart. He is not punishing you by making you wait. He is protecting you from what you are not ready for yet. Sometimes the miracle is not the change in your situation, but the peace that holds you until it changes. Some of the most powerful miracles begin in the quiet surrender of faith. When you stop trying to force what only God can form, your life becomes a magnet for His power. Miracles are not accidents. They are the natural outcome of faith, resting in divine order. When you rest in God, you're not giving up. You're giving into His plan, His pace, His purpose. And in that sacred rest, you'll find a strength that no storm can shake, a hope that no setback can steal, and a peace that surpasses understanding. Do you know why miracles find those who rest in God? Because rest is proof of faith. Anyone can believe when everything looks good. But to rest in the middle of uncertainty, to stay calm while the waves rise high, that's faith that moves mountains. That's the kind of faith that makes the impossible possible. When you rest, you're telling the universe, my hope is not in what I see, it's in the God who sees everything. And when God sees that kind of trust, He moves heaven and earth to honor it. The secret to attracting miracles is not constant movement. It's consistent trust. Miracles are drawn to peace. When your heart is still, you can hear God clearly. You can feel His hand guiding you in ways you would have missed in the noise. Rest opens your spiritual eyes. It allows you to see that what looked like a setback was actually a setup, that the delay was direction, that the silence was not absence, but preparation. God's miracles often travel quietly. They don't always announce their arrival, but they never fail to appear when faith rests in Him. If you could see what God is arranging behind the scenes, you would stop worrying and start worship.
Every unanswered prayer, every closed door, every waiting season has a purpose. God never wastes a moment of your life. He is not a God of confusion. He is a God of perfect timing. When you rest, you align yourself with that timing. You stop fighting the clock and start walking in divine rhythm.
You realize that miracles are never late. They arrive at the exact moment you're ready to receive them. Sometimes God holds back a blessing not to deny you, but to deepen you. He wants to teach you that peace is not the product of having everything you want. It's the fruit of trusting Him.
When your heart learns to rest, you become unstoppable. Worry can't control you. Fear can't intimidate you. Doubt can't break you, because resting in God is the highest form of faith. It is saying, even if I don't see it, I know it's already done.
Miracles are attracted to that kind of faith. They are drawn to those who know. Longer panic in the waiting room of life. The moment you rest, you open the door for God to move.
And when God takes over, the impossible becomes inevitable. Rest does not make you weak. It positions you for power. You may be facing a situation right now that feels too heavy to carry. Maybe it's a broken relationship, a financial burden, a health battle, or a dream that seems out of reach. You've done all you can, and yet nothing seems to change. Hear this truth deep in your soul. It's not your job to make it happen. It's your job to believe it will. Your task is not to control, but to trust. When you stop wrestling with what's beyond your control, miracles begin to breathe again. Resting in God is not passive, it's powerful. It's the decision to live in peace while the world shakes. It's the courage to smile while you wait. It's the discipline to praise Him even when the path is dark. When your heart chooses rest, you are demonstrating unshakable faith. You are saying to every mountain, I will not move until God moves for me. And that's when mountains start to crumble. Some of you have been running from your rest. You believe the lie that if you stop trying, everything will fall apart.
But what if everything is falling apart because you haven't stopped trying? Rest is not retreat. It's realignment. It's God calling you to sit down, breathe, and let Him be God. When you rest, you release control. And when you release control, miracles take control.
There's something sacred about a heart at peace. It shines with quiet confidence. It radiates faith. People notice it, not because it's loud, but because it's unshaken. The peace of one who rests in God becomes a testimony without words. It tells the world, I may not know how, but I know who. And that simple trust moves mountains, heals hearts, restores broken dreams, and draws miracles like iron to a magnet. The truth is, miracles are already on their way to you.
But they're not looking for anxiety. They're looking for alignment. They don't thrive in chaos. They thrive in calm. God's power flows freely through peace. That's why the moment you rest, heaven gets to work. Your rest is the signal that you've handed the situation over.
It's the divine green light that says, God, I trust you to take it from here. And when you do, things begin to shift. The very doors that were closed start to open. The people who walked away are replaced by those who were meant to stay.
The pain that once felt unbearable becomes a platform for growth. Because when you rest, you make room for God to turn burdens into blessings, tests into testimonies, and waiting into winning. Every miracle you've ever heard of began with someone who trusted God enough to stop fighting.
It's not about how much faith you have, it's about where you place it. When your faith rests in the unshakable hands of God, you cannot lose. He will carry you through storms that should have drowned you. He will provide in deserts that should have left you dry.
He will lift you when life tries to push you down. Resting in Him does not remove the storm, but it gives you peace in the middle of it. Right now, there are unseen miracles orbiting your life, waiting for your surrender. They are drawn to faith, not fear.
They are released through trust, not tension. The more you rest, the more they flow. And when they come, you'll realize that they were never delayed. They were simply waiting for you to let go. Do not mistake rest as a weapon. It silences doubt, disarms fear, and dismantles the enemy's lies. When you rest, you are declaring that your future is not determined by your effort, but by God's favor. You're saying, I may not understand what's happening, but I believe something greater is unfolding. And that belief becomes the bridge between where you are and where your miracle is waiting.
When your soul is anchored in peace, storms lose their power. You begin to walk differently. You speak differently. You stop reacting to every challenge and start responding with calm authority. Because resting in God means knowing that the outcome is already secure. Miracles follow that kind of faith. They follow the ones who walk through the fire, but don't fear the flames. So take a deep breath. Let the weight fall from your shoulders. Let the noise of worry fade into silence. God is not asking you to understand everything. He's asking you to trust Him with everything. Rest is not the end of faith. It's the evidence of it. The more you rest, the more miracles will find their way to your door. Your waiting is not wasted. Your rest is not in vain. Every moment you trust instead of fear, God is working. Every time you choose peace instead of panic, heaven moves on your behalf. You may not see it yet, but something sacred is shifting in your favor. Because when you rest in God, miracles will find you. There is a sacred strength that only comes when you stop striving and start trusting. The world will tell you that rest is for the weak, that you must always be doing something, chasing something, fixing something. But that is not the way of divine wisdom. Rest is not for the lazy. It is for the faithful. It is for those who know that when they step back, God steps forward. It is for those who understand that miracles are not born out of noise, but out of stillness. When your heart finds rest in God, your spirit begins to breathe again. Your mind clears. Your soul finds its rhythm. And in that peace, miracles begin to unfold quietly, naturally, without force or fear. God never intended for your soul to live in constant. The reason many people can't see what He's doing is because their minds are too crowded with worry. Worry is like fog. It clouds the vision of faith. You can't see the path when your heart is consumed with fear, but rest clears the fog. Rest says, God, I know you are guiding my steps even when I can't see the road ahead. And when that becomes your posture, you stop trying to control outcomes and start trusting the one who already holds them. That's when divine alignment begins to take shape and miracles find their way to you. Not by accident, but by design. So many are chasing what would simply come to them if they would learn to rest. You don't have to run after blessings when you're walking with the giver of all blessings. You don't need to beg for favor when you're in harmony with the one who commands it. When your life is rooted in rest, you no longer live as if everything depends on you. You live as if everything depends on God. And that's when peace reigns and miracles flow free. The reason some doors have stayed closed is not because God has denied you, but because you have not yet been still enough to receive what's behind them. Rest positions you to receive. God often hides His greatest miracles behind seasons of quiet wait. It is in the stillness that He works most powerfully. You may think nothing is happening, but heaven is busy on your behalf. The unseen hand of God is weaving threads of purpose through your life, connecting moments you can't yet understand. When you rest, you stop interrupting the process. You stop digging up the seeds you've already planted. Rest allows the soil of your soul to nurture those seeds until the harvest arrives. If you would stop worrying about the outcome, you'd be amazed at how quickly. There is power in saying, I will not worry today. That one decision can shift your entire life. Because when you refuse to worry, you make space for faith to rise. And faith is what opens the door to miracles. Faith is not loud, it's steady. It doesn't panic, it trusts, it doesn't rush, it waits, it doesn't argue, it believes. And resting in God is the highest form of faith because it says, even when I can't see it, I know God is moving. Even when I don't feel it, I know He is near. Even when I don't understand it, I know it's for my good. That quiet conviction draws miracles like light draws the dawn. When you rest in God, you become untouchable by fear. Circumstances may shake, people may fail, but you stand firm because your confidence is not in the shifting sands of life. It is in the rock of divine faithfulness. The world cannot steal the peace that God places in a heart that rests. That peace is the armor of the faithful. It protects you from doubt, shields you from anxiety, and covers you with the assurance that you are never alone. You cannot rush divine timing. You cannot force what God is still forming. Sometimes He delays what you desire because He's developing the character to sustain it. Rest allows that growth to happen. It transforms waiting into wisdom, delay into direction. Every pause in your life has a purpose. God is not making you wait to punish. He's preparing you to receive something greater than what you've asked for. That's why it's so important not to fight the silence. The silence of God is never the absence of his work. It's often the sound of your miracle being shaped in the unseen. Resting in God also teaches humility. It reminds you that you are not the author of your story. He is. The world tells you to hustle harder to make things happen, to control your destiny. But the truth is, real power comes from surrender. When you rest, you hand the pen back to God and say, write it your way. And when he writes it, the story always unfolds with beauty, redemption, and divine order. Miracles are simply chapters written by the hand of God in a soul that trusts him completely. Sometimes rest looks like walking away from what drains you. Sometimes it's saying no to people who keep you anxious. Sometimes it's choosing silence over argument, prayer over panic, and faith over frustration. When you choose peace, you are choosing power because the enemy of your soul feeds on chaos. He wants you restless, fearful, and distracted. But when you rest, you starve his influence. You take back your peace, your energy, your authority. And that's when God's miracles begin to multiply in your life. Miracles often arrive disguised as ordinary moments, a conversation, a coincidence, a sudden shift in your spirit. These are often signs that God is moving, but you won't notice them if your soul is restless. Rest sharpens your soul. It allows you to recognize divine fingerprints where others see only chance. Rest is how you tune your heart to heaven's frequency. It's how you hear what the world misses. And in that sacred awareness, you find yourself walking in sync with miracles rather than running after them. When you rest, you allow God to reorder your thoughts. You begin to see that not everything needs an immediate answer. Some questions are meant to stay unanswered for a while so that faith can deepen. Some prayers are meant to linger so that your dependence on God can grow. The waiting, the uncertainty, the quiet. These are not empty spaces. They are holy spaces where your spirit matures and your trust solidifies. Resting in God means you no longer need to understand everything. You simply need to believe that everything is being handled perfectly by him. Rest is also a declaration of victory. It is saying, no matter what comes, I know the outcome is already settled in my favor. That kind of peace confuses the world because it cannot be explained by logic. It is born out of divine assurance. The one who rests in God does not need to see the miracle to believe it. It's already believed into being. Faith transforms rest into action, and rest transforms faith into reality. When you walk with that calm confidence, your life becomes a living testimony that peace is stronger than panic and that trust is stronger than toil. Some people spend years trying to chase miracles that were already scheduled to find them. The reason they miss them is because they're too busy forcing what God has already finished. When you learn to rest, you stop running in circles. You stop exhausting yourself trying to open doors that God never meant for you. Rest brings clarity. It shows you which doors are truly meant for you and which ones are distractions dressed as opportunities. When you rest, you allow divine wisdom to guide you instead of human emotion. Rest is also the birthplace of creativity, revelation, and insight. When your mind is at peace, God can whisper new ideas, reveal new paths, and bring fresh understanding. Many breakthroughs happen in moments of quiet reflection, not in frantic effort. You may find that the very answer you've been seeking appears the moment you stop striving for it. That's not coincidence. That's divine order. God speaks clearest to the hearts that are still enough to listen. When you rest in God, you stop asking when and start saying, I know. You stop begging and start believing. You stop fearing what's next and start thanking him for what's coming. That shift in attitude transforms your atmosphere. Gratitude becomes your language. Peace becomes your power. Hope becomes your anchor. And as your heart aligns with faith, miracles naturally flow in your direction. You don't have to chase them. They chase you. Every great soul that has ever walked in divine power learned the art of resting in God. They understood that peace is not the absence of trouble, but the presence of trust, and that trust, once rooted, cannot be shaken. When you reach that level of faith, life stops controlling you. You begin to move through it with grace, composure, and confidence that nothing can defeat you as long as God is your foundation. Let the world hurry. Let others panic. You stay anchored. You stay calm. You stay grounded in faith, because the one who rests in God is never behind. Divine timing never runs late. What's meant for you cannot be taken from you. What's destined for your life will find you the moment you stop running ahead of God and start walking beside Him. Every storm you faced has taught you something. Every delay has strengthened something within you. Every unanswered prayer has refined your trust. Nothing has been wasted. When you rest, you see the purpose behind the pain. You realize that God's hand has been guiding you all along, even through the detours and disappointments. Resting in Him allows you to see your life not as a series of random events, but as a masterpiece of divine coordination. Do not be afraid to let go of what you cannot control. Do not be afraid to slow down. Peace is not inactivity. It's divine strength. Miracles live in that space between surrender and faith. When you rest in God, you become unmovable, unbreakable, and unbothered by the noise of life. Because deep down, you know this truth. What God has written for you cannot be erased by anyone or anything. When you finally surrender your worries, you'll feel a freedom you haven't felt in years. You'll breathe easier. You'll think clearer. You'll smile again. Not because everything is perfect, but because you've realized that perfection was never the goal. Peace will open doors that effort could never unlock. Rest in God. Stop running from your peace. Stop doubting the timing of your destiny. The miracle you've been praying for is not lost. It's waiting for you to stop striving and start believing. The moment you rest, heaven moves. The moment you trust, the universe aligns. The moment you let go, the blessings you've been chasing will begin to chase you. And when they find you, you'll know. It was never about working harder. It was about trusting deeper. It was never about how fast you could move. It was about how still you could be. For in that stillness and that quiet surrender, you will find what every restless heart is searching for. The peace of God that cannot be shaken, and the miracles that flow from it like a river that never runs dry. There is a sacred kind of power that rises in a soul that no longer feels the need to fight every battle alone. When you rest in God, you're not stepping away from life. You're stepping into divine partnership. You are saying, God, I've done what I can. Now you take over. That moment of surrender becomes the bridge between struggle and strength, between waiting and winning. When you rest, you're not giving. You're giving God the right to show what only He can do. And that is when the miraculous begins to flow. Not because you demanded it, but because you trusted enough to let Him take control. Every day, God is inviting you to trust Him more deeply. Every worry you carry is a chance to practice faith. Every delay is an opportunity to rest instead of react. But the world has taught us to panic when things slow down. We live in a generation addicted to movement, addicted to proving our worth, addicted to the illusion of control. Yet the truth is this: peace is the highest proof of strength. Resting in God is not for the faint-hearted. It takes boldness to be still when everything around you is shaking. It takes courage to say, I will wait, because I believe that what God has prepared for me is far greater than what I could rush to create for myself. There is a beauty in the quiet confidence of those who rest in God. They do not need to announce their faith. Their peace speaks for them. You can see it in their eyes, hear it in their words, and feel it in their presence. Their calmness confuses those who live in constant fear because it is not natural. It is supernatural. That peace is the mark of divine protection. It is the invisible shield around those who trust that no matter what happens, God is working it all for their good. Resting in God changes your relationship with time. You no longer see waiting as wasted. You see it as preparation. Every season has a divine reason. There are things that only waiting can teach you. Patience, wisdom, discernment, humility. When you rest, you stop measuring progress by visible results and start measuring it by inner peace. Because the greatest miracles are not always the ones you can see. Sometimes they are the ones that happen within you. The transformation, the clarity, the quiet strength that grows in the soil of stillness. God never hurries, yet He is never late. His timing is not measured by clocks or calendars, but by purpose. You may think you're behind, but you're right on schedule. Rest allows you to see that what looks like delay is often protection. Sometimes God withholds something you want because He knows it's not yet safe to receive it. He waits until your heart is ready, until your spirit can handle the weight of the blessing. And when it finally comes, you'll understand why it had to take the time it did. When you rest in God, you learn to see beyond appearances. You start to understand that what looks like loss can be preparation for gain, that what feels like rejection can be redirection, that what seems like silence can be the sound of divine strategy. Resting in God sharpens your spiritual vision. It helps you recognize that He is always several steps ahead, aligning people's circumstances and timing to deliver miracles at the perfect moment. The reason many people feel anxious is because they are trying to manage what belongs only to God. They want to control outcomes, dictate timing, and understand mysteries that only heaven knows. But peace begins where control ends. The moment you let go of your need to know every detail, you make room for faith to grow. You begin to live from a place of quiet assurance, not constant anxiety. You start to say, I don't know how, but I know who. I don't see the way, but I trust the one who makes the way. That is rest. And that rest is the soil where miracles grow. There are seasons in life when God will close every door around you, not to punish you, but to position you. When you can no longer move forward, when every plan falls apart, that does not defeat its direction. God is teaching you to stop striving and start listening. Sometimes He takes away the map, so you'll learn to follow His voice. When you rest in Him, you stop chasing clarity and start embracing faith. You learn that you don't need to understand everything to be at peace. All you need to know is that God is with you, and that is enough. Rest also reveals what truly matters. When the noise quiets and you're left alone with your thoughts, you begin to see which desires come from fear and which ones come from faith. You start to release what you were never meant to carry. You stop comparing your path to others and begin to walk confidently in your own divine lane. Resting in God frees you from the pressure to perform. It reminds you that your worth is not in what you achieve, but in who you are in His care. Some people believe that if they rest, they will lose everything. But the truth is, if you never rest, you will lose yourself. The body needs rest. The mind needs rest. But most of all, the soul needs rest. When your soul rests, your spirit flourishes. You begin to operate from abundance, not exhaustion. You no longer chase blessings. You become one. You move through life carrying the peace of God, and everywhere you go, that peace changes the atmosphere. Do not confuse stillness with stagnation. Rest is not inactivity, it is divine preparation. A farmer rests after sowing because he knows that the soil is doing its silent work. You too must learn to trust the unseen. Just because you can't see progress doesn't mean nothing is happening. The roots grow before the fruit is. The foundation is laid before the house rises. God is doing more in the dark than you realize. Rest allows that unseen work to flourish without your interference. Miracles are drawn to the heart that waits quietly with expectation. Expectation is not impatience. It's faith with focus. When you rest in God, your waiting becomes active faith. You wake each day not with dread but with anticipation, knowing that at any moment something could shift, a door could open, a prayer could be answered. That expectancy keeps your heart alive, even when the world around you feels slow. Miracles meet those who wait with hope, not those who panic with fear. When you truly rest in God, you stop questioning your path. You stop asking, why me, and start saying, use me. You begin to see your struggles not as punishments, but as training grounds for greater strength. Every delay becomes a teacher. Every setback becomes a seed. And when the harvest comes, you will not just receive the blessing, you will understand it, you will cherish it. Because rest taught you to wait with dignity, to trust without evidence, and to believe without conditions. Resting in God also strengthens your resilience. When you live from a place of peace, you are not easily shaken. You stop reacting to every difficulty and start responding with faith. Even when storms rise, your heart stays anchored because rest is not built on comfort. It's built on conviction. It's the deep knowing that God's plan cannot be derailed by human actions. That knowledge steadies you when everything else falls apart. Look back at your life and you'll see that some of your greatest blessings came after your deepest rest. There were moments when you were forced to stop, when all you could do was trust. And in those moments, something divine happened. That's the secret. Miracles often arrive when you have no strength left to chase them. Because when your strength ends, God's begins. He waits for you to release the power. Wait so that He can lift it. He waits for you to stop speaking so that He can start moving.
Resting in God teaches you to stop measuring success by speed. What matters is not how fast you move, but how aligned you are with divine purpose. Sometimes the slowest seasons are the most sacred because they teach you what rushing never could. They teach you to depend, to discern, to see beyond the surface. They prepare you to handle the miracles that are coming your way.
Because a miracle that arrives before you are ready can feel like a burden. But when you rest, you grow into the person capable of carrying it. Every time you rest, instead of worry, you strengthen your connection with the divine. You affirm your faith in His control, His wisdom, mercy.
You begin to realize that peace is not found in the absence of problems, but in the presence of trust. Resting in God is the art of finding calm in the chaos, light in the darkness, and purpose in the pause. And as you master that art, your life transforms from constant striving to effortless flow.
Well, miracles are not forced, they are found. You may not know when or how, but if you stay rooted in faith and anchored in rest, what is meant for you will find you. The peace of God will guard your heart. The favor of God will surround you. And the miracles of God will meet you right where you are, not because you chased them, but because you trusted deeply enough to let them come. Rest, therefore, is not a suggestion. It's a command of faith. It's the divine rhythm that keeps you connected to the heart of God. When you live in that rhythm, you live in peace. You walk in purpose, and you attract miracles that no effort could ever produce. Rest in God, and you will discover that what you've been chasing has been trying to reach you all along. So, my friend, rest in God. Not the restless kind of waiting where you tap your foot and wonder when the miracle will come, but the stillness that says, God, you are enough for me even before the blessing arrives. That is the kind of rest that moves mountains. That is the peace that draws miracles into your life like rivers drawn to the ocean. When your soul is anchored in God, storms lose their power to shake you. When you trust in His timing, delays turn into preparation, and silence becomes the sound of divine construction. You see, resting in God is not an act of weakness. It is the highest expression of strength. The world will tell you to rush, to push, to grasp. But God whispers, be still and know that I am God. When you release control, you allow Him to take command. When you stop striving, you make room for His perfect plan. Many lose their blessings not because God denied them, but because they refuse to wait. They let anxiety speak louder than faith. But when you rest in Him, you rise above worry. You begin to walk with quiet confidence, knowing that what is meant for you cannot pass you by. There is a deep beauty in surrender. It is the point where human effort meets divine grace. When you say, God, I trust you, even though I cannot see the way, the gates of heaven begin to open. You may not hear thunder, but something shifts in the unseen. You may not feel it instantly, but your situation starts bending toward victory. Resting in God is not a pause. It is power under peace. It is the moment your faith matures and your spirit aligns with His will. That is when miracles recognize your address. That is when favor begins to find you in ways you could never imagine. Look around you. The people who rest in God are not frantic. They move with calmness. They speak with faith. And they face challenges with serenity. They have learned that worry never adds a single blessing, but trust attracts everything. They know that the same God who carried them through yesterday will sustain them tomorrow. And you too must learn this sacred rhythm. Stop wrestling with what God already has in control. Stop replaying fears that God has already silenced in heaven. When you truly rest in Him, the battle ceases within you, even before it ends around you. Miracles are not born in chaos. They are born in calm. When your heart is at peace, your faith becomes fertile ground for God's power to grow. You will begin to see solutions rise out of nowhere. People will be set into your path without you asking. Doors will open that your strength could never force open. That is the mystery of resting in God. When you stop chasing miracles, they begin to chase you. When you stop begging for signs, signs begin to surround you. When you stop running after blessings, blessings begin to follow you. Resting in God does not mean inaction. It means alignment. It means your steps are no longer driven by panic, by purpose. It means you move with faith, not fear. Patience, not pressure. You start to understand that every delay is divine, every detour is direction, and every silence is sacred. You realize that God is not late. He is preparing something that will be worth every second of waiting. So breathe, let go, sit in his presence, and let peace rebuild your strength. If your heart has been heavy, if your prayers have felt unanswered, if you have wondered whether God still hears you, hear this now. He has not forgotten you. The silence is not neglect. It is a sign that something holy is in motion. The unseen hand of God is arranging what you cannot yet perceive. Do not confuse stillness with absence. The God who created the stars has not lost sight of your tears. He sees you, he knows. And he is already writing the chapter that will make sense of all this waiting. So I urge you, rest in him. Rest not in your plans, not in your predictions, not in your pride, but in the everlasting arms of the Almighty. Rest because no force can stop what he has declared over your life. Rest because what seems delayed is only being perfected. Rest because the same God who opened the Red Sea can open your closed doors. Rest because his timing is always better than your timeline. Rest because faith is not proven in the waiting. It is perfected in it. Let your heart quiet down tonight. Stop arguing with yourself. Stop battling what you cannot control. Stop questioning what only God can answer. Trust that he is in the details. Trust that even when you see nothing happening, everything is happening in his plan. The storm will not last. The night will not hold forever. Morning is coming and it is carrying your miracle with it. So go forth with peace in your soul. Let your faith stand taller than your fear. When the world shakes, stand still in God. When confusion comes, whisper his name in your heart. When you feel weak, remember he is your strength. When you feel lost, remember he is your guide. You were never meant to carry the weight of your life alone. You were meant to walk in trust, to live in faith, and to rest in the certainty that God never fails. Miracles are drawn to still hearts. Blessings move toward quiet trust. Peace becomes your proof that God is near. And when you live from that place, when you rest in God, you will find that miracles no longer need to be chased. They will find you because you are already